Well, you guys, today we're taking a look at Microsoft's secret GDID key that is tracking your entire PC's activity. So what is GDID? GDID is a persistent key or an identifier. It's tied to a specific Windows installation, whether it'll be a proper computer or virtual machine. If you look in the registry, you will see I've blurred out my GDID number right here. You should never expose this to anyone, but this is the GDID ID for this computer. Everyone has a different ID. So in short, every Windows install gets a 64-bit number called GDID. It's a global device identifier. Windows will ask login.live.com for the first time your machine connects to the internet and stores it in the registry as a 16 hex characters like you can see right here in my registry. So if you're checking the registry like this, you will see that it's listed and appears as an LID in hexadecimal format. But you may be thinking, why don't I just delete this registry file? Well, you can. You can delete this straight off the computer. But the big problem is it's also stored on Microsoft servers. So as soon as you connect to that server again, it's just going to retrieve your GDID ID again and put it straight back into the registry. And it will happen pretty quickly as well. So it's pointless. You can't remove it. Now you can also find this information using PowerShell or the Windows terminal. And to do that, you would just need to paste a bit of code into the Windows terminal. And I'll leave that on my website, and you can just paste it in and it will give you the code just at the bottom, what your GDID ID number is. And I've blurred it out here because obviously this is my main system and you shouldn't be exposing this number to anyone. So that means 1.6 billion Windows PCs have this GDID number. It's assigned to each Windows installation, whether that will be a standard Windows installation for your computer or laptop, or whether it's a virtual machine. So you may be thinking, what's the big deal? Well, a few days ago, the FBI used this information to trace a suspect member of the Scattered Spider hacker group. What a name that is. But anyway, they used this GDID number to be able to identify him and use timestamps to be able to track him and find what information he'd been doing on that computer. And this was given to them by, of course, Microsoft, which is not good. Now, like I told you many times before, using programs like WinHance or WinUtil or any programs like this are not going to stop Microsoft monitoring what you're doing or stop telemetry. It will stop stuff on the surface, but you're talking about an operating system that is closed to the general public. It's not open source. And there is going to be code buried deep in that operating system, which you have no control or power over to stop it. And you may be thinking that you can use a VPN and this will protect you. And this also means that the VPN is in no way useful for hiding your GDID number. If Windows decides to share this information to third parties or even the FBI or anyone, your GDID number is going to be your identifier for your computer and it will have timestamps. And this is something a lot of VPNs have. They still have timestamps of when you connected and when you disconnected and what server you connected to and what server you disconnected to. They don't have logs, but they do have timestamps, and they just marry those two timestamps up and say you was in this place at this time and you was doing this. And that's how it works. I think VPNs give people the feeling of being private, as if no one's watching them and none of their data is being stored anywhere. But unfortunately, we would all love to live in a world where we're completely anonymous online, but that's just not going to happen. And it wasn't so long ago Microsoft were giving people up with BitLocker encryption and giving them keys to be able to gain access to the data on their drives. So really, you have to ask the question is how secure do you think you are on a Windows operating system or with any of the other things that you're using like VPNs? Now, I don't want to deviate off of GDID too much and end up talking about VPNs because privacy is a major concern for a lot of people, but there is a major write-up about Windows GDID on this GitHub page here, and he goes into great detail about what it is and basically the ins and outs of everything about GDID itself. And there's plenty of, security websites online that go into what GDID is and how it works as well. Now, of course, you can do your best to block as much telemetry on your computer as possible, and that's always advisable, especially if you insist on using Windows. You can see right here, I've gone ahead and I've used Group Policy Editor, which is my preferred way of disabling a lot of this stuff. You can see it's completely grayed out and turned off. And a lot of scripts and applications don't do this. All they do is just turn the actual feature off. And this is about as good as it gets for a Windows user. Of course, you're not going to have any of these issues on Linux, but as a Windows user, you are going to have to jump through some hoops and try to turn as much of this stuff off. And this will reduce the amount of telemetry that is being harvested from your PC. That's not to say that it's not still harvesting information deep down in the code of the operating system that you have no control over, just like G did. Now, I do believe that if you're one of these people that are super paranoid about what Microsoft are harvesting from you, then the simple solution is not to use that operating system whatsoever, because obviously it's not for you. But there's lots of people that use Windows every day and they don't even turn a lot of this stuff off. They just leave it. And that's because probably they're not doing anything wrong on their computer. But there is people out there that just want their privacy. And unfortunately, you're not going to have it with a Windows operating system. So what is the best approach if you insist on staying on Windows? Well, it means you're going to have to go through and turn off a lot of this stuff that you don't need or don't want to run on the system, and try to not use the built-in applications that come with Windows, like their media players and their snipping tools, and also their clipboard and things like that, their search. All of this stuff is going to be harvesting information and probably taking records of everything you're doing activity and taking timestamps and probably sending this back to the Microsoft server for it to be stored. Now, obviously, you can block a lot of this, and there's lots of IP addresses that you will have to go through and block in firewall level or even router level, which is probably the best way to go about it. You can just run Wireshark on your system and you're going to start seeing IP addresses and also domain names like these popping up, and these are connecting to your system and sending telemetry back to Microsoft. And of course, a lot of these can be controlled to try and alleviate a lot of the telemetry that is harvested. And these are things like machine brought back onto the network, automatic proxy discovery, Windows validate, internet access, diagnostic and settings, identity service, GDID provisioning, also Windows push notifications, layer that reports, and also discovery and delivery optimization, peers of the local network, activation and licensing, and there's probably lots more, but these are just some of the main ones that you're going to need to block and restrict if you want to cut down on the GDID information that is being sent back to Microsoft. Now, of course, when you're blocking domain names that belong to Microsoft, that means they can't service your computer properly, and you're going to see issues. You might lose services like Microsoft account, Microsoft Store, OneDrive, Microsoft 365, account linked, UWP apps, and there's also other things like phone link, continue on PC, cloud clipboard, nearby sharing, and things like that, peer-to-peer distribution of updates and store content, activity history, and also delivery optimizations. These are going to be to do with Windows updates and things like that. So if you do start blocking a lot of this stuff, you are going to run into some sort of issues. And if you try to do more severe measures of blocking GDID, it's going to cause other issues on your system as well. So you may have to make some really sort of difficult decisions if you've had enough of Microsoft's telemetry and harvesting of data antics. You might have to make some serious choices about what operating system you want to use. To a lot of people, this video is not really going to be that important because some people just won't care and they will just continue using Windows, which they have done for many years because Microsoft have been harvesting telemetry for many years. It's not just been Windows 11 like a lot of people claim. This has been going on for a long time. So GDID is heavily embedded into the operating system and deals with telemetry, WNS, push notifications, the Microsoft Store, purchases, licenses and installs, Windows activation and Windows updates. You've got connected devices platform, delivery optimization and Microsoft Edge, as you would guess. And this is probably just scratching the surface of what GDID has control over. So you can see how this identification number is going to be tied to you and all of the things you're doing on Windows. And I can see the Linux fanboys sitting in their cheap seats at the back laughing at everyone on Windows, because let's face it, this is a major problem for a lot of people. Privacy is a real big thing for a lot of people, and they're finding their privacy just being, stripped down bit by bit every time more information is being released. And we already knew that Microsoft was pretty bad for privacy, but this is probably a step too far for a lot of people. And they may just end up ditching Windows and going to a new platform like Linux or Mac OS or Android or whatever it is they choose to use. So let's take a look at some of the alternatives. Linux Mint is one of these. Now, I've tried to keep the information in this video as basic as possible so people can go and read some of the articles that I'll leave in the video description about GDID, because there's articles out there that go really deep into what GDID is, and I really don't want to sort of go too heavy into it because it might be a little bit too much for people to digest. It certainly started to hurt my head when I started reading some of it. So I'll leave all that information in the video description. But if you are sick and tired of Windows and are looking to jump ship, then Linux Mint might be an option for you. It's a rock solid choice for a lot of Linux users. Also, Zorin OS is right up there. It's become really, really popular. Lots of people have been downloading Zorin OS and using it as their operating system once they've moved away from Windows. Now, a lot of people have moved away from Windows, and it's not just people with unsupported hardware. Some of these are disgruntled customers that have just had enough of Microsoft and are sick to the back teeth of their harvesting of their private information, and they just don't like it. And if you're one of those people, let me know in the comments section down below whether you have moved to Linux, because I'll be interested to see how many people have actually had enough of it and are considering moving to Linux or have actually moved to Linux. Another one that you can use is obviously Catchy OS. If you're a gamer, this might be very useful to you. There's other options out there as well for Linux. There's plenty of choice. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of Linux users in the comments that might put in some suggestions, if there's any Linux users left who watch my content. But other than that, I would say have a look at the software you use on Windows and see if it's compatible on Linux. If it's not, you may need to use alternative software. The same thing for games. If you're a gamer, check to see whether some of the games you like to play a lot and see if they work on Linux. If they don't, then that might be a deal breaker. You need to have a look at all of the things that you need on Windows, and you can see whether this is an option on Linux for you before you jump ship. You can always use it in a virtual machine to see whether you like it or not, or put it on an old system and mess around with it and familiarize yourself with the operating system before you fully commit. There's also dual boot options as well, if that's something that might interest you. Now, also, I'll leave a link for this website here. There's another big breakdown of exactly what GDID is, and they go into great detail. And these are a security company that have actually written a full-blown article on it, and I'll leave all this information on my website so you can read this at your own leisure. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. It does help the channel grow. My name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Just want to say a quick shout out to all my YouTube members. I really do appreciate the support, and I shall catch you in the next video, or I'll see you on a new Discord server. The link is in the video description. Bye for now.